So now that we've covered the Mass General laws as well as the federal regulation, which is OSHA, next up we're going to talk about DigSafe, which is another part of excavating in the ground. So it's an 800 call center, right, that's out there just for excavations to make sure that if you dig in the ground that you don't hit an underground utility. Right? It's not perfect, but it's a system that we have in Massachusetts and other parts of the country that provide for worker safety as well as safety of the utilities, occupants of buildings, and also people that happen to be walking by or driving by. Right? So DigSafe itself is a call center. They don't necessarily mark the lines. Right? It's a private, not-for-profit organization established by the utilities. So the utilities all contribute to DigSafe so that there's a call center involved that you would call in. You say, I'm going to dig a hole here or there, or a trench. You would mark the area. DigSafe would show up or call someone to show up, find out where the lines are, mark those utilities, so then when the excavator shows up, if you're the excavator, you would know exactly where you shouldn't dig in order to not hit those utilities. So there's some DigSafe statistics out there. If you go to this site, you can actually see what are the violations? Is it people that don't call DigSafe? Are those the violations? And of course, you're right. You would be right if you said that. Right? People that don't call DigSafe and they pull up a power line, they pull up a gas line or a cable line, eventually someone's going to have to be called to get that repaired, and they always inform the utilities and DigSafe when that occurs. So there's a violation, there's fines involved, and things like that. It'll also tell you some statistics that DigSafe isn't always 100% accurate. This is not a knock against DigSafe. Some utilities are hundreds of years old, so the actual lines and where they are may not be completely accurate. But again, you want to go to this website. It has some good information on DigSafe and where things fall apart sometimes. Right? Typically, it's just folks not calling the 811 number and giving that information. Right? So DigSafe is basically open work days, right? 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Right? You can go online and file for a ticket or a permit from DigSafe. So before you excavate the ground at all, right? Before you even an 8-inch hole you want to dig in the ground, you want to call DigSafe. Right? No matter what, just give them a call, put a ticket in, go online, do it whatever way you want to, but certainly include DigSafe. It doesn't cost you any money. It takes time, takes a few days for them to come out, but it's a free service. The utilities do not want you digging up their lines. And trust me, you don't want to dig up utilities lines. I've seen gas lines dug up, power lines, phone lines. It's always a mess. Then you have to wait for other utilities to come in and actually fix them before you can get your building up and running again. So this is the DigSafe wants you to do this online now. It used to be just a phone call, but you can easily put it online because they're going to ask you for a lot of information. They want to know exactly what the house number is, your information as the excavator. So DigSafe wants the information, and you can do it online, and you're going to eventually get a ticket or permit number either online or they'll call you up and give it to you that way. So this is a DigSafe rule. Right? It's a Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulation that basically says we're following DigSafe's guidelines, right? And so there's some information here and definitions that kind of go with it. It establishes a procedure for determining the nature and extent of the violation. So if there are violations, there's a way to follow through with that. In addition, 22 CMR 99 says what the standards to be used to determine the amount of civil penalties to be imposed. So there could be penalties imposed if we actually dig up a gas line or electric line. So every gas, electric, and telephone company, municipal gas or electric department, natural gas pipeline, petroleum products pipeline, private water company, sewer, you name it, right, shall report all suspected violations to the Department of Telecommunications and Energy Department within 30 days of learning of the circumstances of a suspected violation. So basically, utilities will tell on you. You dig a hole, right, and you hit one of their lines, they're going to call the department and let them know. So rest assured, it's going to be tough to hide a secret like that if you pull up one of the utilities. They're going to eventually find out and turn you in. No excavator installing a new facility for an addition to an existing facility, the relay or repair of an existing facility, shall accept an emergency, make an excavation. So again, emergencies are a little bit different. So you can't make an excavation in a public or private way or right-of-way or easement unless at least 72 hours exclusive of weekends and holidays, but not more than 30 days before the proposed excavation is to be made. The excavator shall pre-mark it and call that center, right? But you can only pre-mark up to 500 feet. That's pretty much what they'll check. They'll do a house lot, and check that out and mark everything there, but up to 500 feet. If it's anything more than that, it requires a more extensive review with DigSafe, right? But again, 72 hours or 3 days, right? But not more than 30 days, so keep that in mind. So the reason the 30 days is there, let's just say you call them up, but you get there a month and a half later after DigSafe went. Things could have changed, utilities could have changed. Not to mention any lines they marked are probably faded after a month and a half. So they want you to give them 3 days to mark the lines. After those 3 days, you want to get that job done or dig that hole and backfill it within 30 days so that you don't lose those lines that are on the ground for those utilities. And again, last but not least, just a reminder that they're going to mark approximately 500 feet. But if you say do 34 Pleasant Street, they'll do the whole lot, all right, just to make sure that there's any gas, sewer, electric, or cable lines, they're all marked. This is a waiver for an emergency. So if there's a life-threatening situation, right, you can dig without calling them, but you're supposed to still notify DigSafe. But again, you wouldn't want to cause more harm than good. So it should definitely be an emergency situation where something vital is vital utility needs to be accessed. So it's a gas leak in the ground or something like that, and you can smell the gas coming up. You certainly want to get down there and take care of the problem. So that would be an emergency, or someone's going to get hurt because of lack of digging a hole. So again, in an emergency, you can get a waiver for that. But you're still supposed to let them know if there's blasting going on as well, 72 hours in advance, but at least in an emergency, not less than 4 hours prior. So markings, within 72 hours, again, exclusive of weekends and holidays, from the time of the initial notice is received by the system, utility company shall respond to the initial notice or subsequent notice by designating the location of the underground facilities within 15 feet, right, in any direction of the pre-marking. So you're going to see this word pre-marking quite a bit. That's the excavator's markings. Excavator goes in with white paint, white flags, white stakes, and they actually pre-mark the area that they plan on digging. If it's a long trench, you could just run one line right from point A to point B, or a dotted line or something like that. But pre-marking is done by the person that's going to dig the hole or that trench, and it's done in the color white, right? And the underground, they're going to check when DigSafe shows up, they're going to go within 15 feet of that in any direction of the pre-marking, right? So they're going to look 15 feet wide. So it's a 2-inch wide strip that you've just painted. They're going to go 15 feet this way and 15 feet that way to make sure that no utilities are nearby. Or if there are, they're going to mark them out. Right, there's a good example down below of pre-marking. That's the white paint you see. If that is red, I think it's red, that would be power. Right, we'll get into the color designations in just a minute. Providing of such designation by the company shall constitute prima facie evidence of an exercise of reasonable precaution by the company is required. That in the event that the excavator has given notice at the location because of the length of the excavation, the company cannot reasonably designate the entire location, facilities. So let's just say you have 5 house lots where you're going to be digging trenches, right? And so that's a pretty wide area, a pretty big area for DigSafe to come in and actually start marking all the utilities. What they're saying is let them give them that 3-day notice and then say, listen, can you start on the eastern end of those lots and mark 500 feet there, and then work your way to the western part of the lot. So they're going to want to know where you're going to start. Where are you going to start digging? You're going to start digging on this side of the area that you need marked, or that side. So again, large areas, so a single house lot, not a big deal. They're going to come in and mark out the whole thing. But if you're doing a big construction site, maybe multiple buildings going up, and you need big areas marked out, they're going to say, okay, just tell us where you're going to start digging, and we'll start our markings there and progress towards the other side of that excavation area, and we'll mark that accordingly, right? That's what it's saying. So maintaining marks. So those marks over time will get faded. A lot of times they spray them on grass, you mow the grass and your lines start disappearing, it rains out, other weather conditions can cause erosion of those marks. So it's up to the excavator, the person digging the hole, the excavator, to make sure that those lines are maintained. So let's just say you excavate the area, in this case, right, they pre-marked it, but there was still a utility line there and they want to keep those marks going. You're supposed to actually, in this case, they drew a line across and they're keeping those marks going. So if you dig a hole, you need to mark over that area that you just excavated. That's the excavator's job. Right? So maintaining marks when excavating in close proximity to the underground facility, non-mechanical means shall be employed. So let's just say you have an excavator, you're digging a hole, but you start getting close to that utility. Let's say it's a marked power line, right? When you get even, let's say within 2 feet of it, put the excavator away, go park it someplace and get out a shovel. So that's what they're saying, right? If you get close to any of those lines, any of those marked lines, get your shovel out and just do it by hand, okay? Instead of a machine, they want you to get, they say non-mechanical means a shovel. Okay. So digging without notice, so if you start digging and you damage a pipe, a wire, a conduit, anything else, that's basically evidence. You're supposed to leave it alone. You're not supposed to cover it back up, right? The worst thing you can do is cover up a utility that you just damaged. They're going to find out anyway, so you better just leave it open. Obviously, if there's a ruptured gas line, you'd want to make sure that line is clear, get your machine away from there, get people out of there, and call the utility right away so they could shut it off. But basically, you cause damage, right? It's negligence, basically. You're probably going to get fined, but don't try to cover it up, right? So nothing contained herein shall be construed to affect or impair local ordinance or bylaws requiring permits. So basically, you're supposed to get a DigSafe permit no matter what, right? It doesn't, there's no like bylaws saying you can't. Basically, you want to dig, you call DigSafe, and that's it. That's it. It's final. Let's just say you do dig up a utility. You don't call DigSafe. You pull up a water line or a gas line or something like that. Now you can get a fine. Right? And just keep this in mind. This was actually a test question that someone I know had. This fine shall be $1,000 for the first offense and not less than $5,000 and more than $10,000 for any subsequent offense within 12 consecutive months. All right? So $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 for 12 months. All right. So did some other definitions for DigSafe. Center-line methods. Basically, you draw a line from point A to point B, and you just mark it with white paint, and they're going to go 15 feet in either direction, right, when they do the other markings. The company means natural gas pipeline company, so utility company when you see the word company. Description of excavation location, right? So when you go and you call DigSafe or you go online, they're going to want to know the area, so you have to give it a description, either type it in or tell them what the description of the area is and why you're digging the trench and that sort of thing. Emergency conditions where there's imminent danger to life or health. Excavation means removal of earth. Excavator is the person that actually digs the hole. The facility, it's something that's built, construction installed, like a building, right? And a person means a venture, partnership, or corporation. Pre-marking is what the excavator does. And the safety zone. So please keep this in mind right here. This 18 inches is kind of a big one. So let's say utility marks their lines. It's a cable company, it's orange. They mark their lines. They may be pretty close, right? DigSafe is usually pretty good, but you don't get within 18 inches of that marked line, right? Not your pre-markings, but the utility lines. If it's red, electrical, orange, whatever it may be, you stay 18 inches away from that marking. Right? So here's some standard color coding. I have a better slide that's coming up in a little while. Standard color coding. So red is always power lines, right? Yellow is always gas, right? Or petroleum, typically it's a gas line. Orange is communications, which would be cable TV, internet, that sort of thing. Blue is water, and green is sewer. And of course, white at the bottom is always your pre-mark. That's the excavator uses that. So you pre-mark before you call. So you pre-mark the area, then you call DigSafe. Okay, so pre-mark it, then you give them a call. And they're saying also, let's just say you're using white, which is what an excavator is supposed to use, white paint. But let's just say it's a white concrete driveway and the white's not going to show up. You can use another color. You just can't use one of these colors. So if it's a white driveway, use brown or black, right, on that driveway so that you can actually see it so it would actually show up. Right? And then when excavating, so let's say it's around a guardrail or fence, you can actually use that guardrail or fence as part of your markings. So it's going to go through a guardrail, through a fence. You can actually spray paint it white with your excavator paint and take it from there. So notice 72 hours, but not more than 30 days. You remember those two numbers, right? Such notice shall include a description of the excavation location and the date the excavation is expected to begin. In an emergency, the excavator may commence excavating after having taken all reasonable steps to notify the system and pre-mark the site. Each company shall establish standing operating procedures to identify the location of its respected mounds. Now, these are utility companies. They need to let DigSafe know where their plans are, where their lines are, so they have to be forthcoming with all that information. Again, the utilities don't want you digging up their stuff, their lines, right, whatever it may be. They don't want you digging them up, so they contribute to this. That's why it's free. So marking procedures. You can use a centerline method. Again, you draw a straight line, and again, if they put some markings there, you're not supposed to get within 18 inches of their lines. All markings shall indicate where practical width is greater than 2 inches in material underground, as well as any change in any direction. So they're supposed to, let's say utilities, my line's going this way, the utilities are going this way. They actually point the direction of those utility lines. Right? Now, marking shall extend at least 15 feet beyond the boundaries of the pre-marked area. So you draw your line, they go out 15 feet in any direction, and that's where they would put their utilities. Within 72 hours, right, the company excavator agree, every company shall mark the location of an underground facility. So you call that one number, every underground facility should be notified and marked out typically by a contractor hired by DigSafe. Some towns, it's still out there, some towns still have like a separate gas company you have to call or something like that, but DigSafe would let you know that when you called them or contacted them. In a paved area designated as a historical location, a company may use chalk, stakes, flags, or brush-type markers. Not always paint, right? You could use stakes, white flags, any whiskers. There's other types of things you can pop out there. So you don't want to start spray painting over in a cemetery or something like that. You certainly would want to at least mark it out some way or another with some types of flags or stakes, right? Use a regular color code. The company may also place supplemental offset marks, right? So let's just say you want to dig over there, but you don't want to mark that area. Maybe it's a historical monument or something like that, but that's where you want to dig. The utility company could actually mark their lines over here and say 6 feet in that direction are 2 power lines that run parallel to each other. All right, so those are called offset markings. I think I have a picture of that somewhere else. After the company has designated the location of its facilities in accordance with Section 608, the excavator shall be responsible for maintaining the lines, right? Let's just say destruction or other removal of the markings. The company, again, you have to put those lines back, basically draw them out and get them back on there within 24 hours. Markings shall be valid for an excavation site until one of the following events occurs, right? So the markings are good until you go over that 30-day limit. right? It's 31 days, 35 days, whatever. You go over the 30 days, you have to call DigSafe again and get another permit. It's good for 30 days and that's it. Right? Markings become faded. You can't see them anymore, right? Then it's no good anymore, right? It's invalid. A company installs new underground facilities, so they come in and they start running fiber in your neighborhood within that 30 days. Now you have to call DigSafe again. An emergency condition exists which nullifies any markings. That could be a horrific storm or something like that, right? So excavation, again, non-mechanical means you're employed when you get within 18 inches or you start getting close to that actual utility marking, getting your shovel out, right? You don't want to get in there and tear up a gas line. It's easy to do. And excavate, it won't even feel it. It'll just rip it right out of the ground. But if you start getting close with a shovel, you'll kind of know if any damage is going to happen. If an excavator damages a company underground facility or has reason to believe that the company's underground facility may be damaged in any way, the excavator must notify that company. So you would, again, don't try to hide your mistakes. Call the utility company. It may not be your fault. Maybe DigSafe didn't find that pipe or wire that you dug into. But again, notify that utility as soon as possible. If there's a violation, there's a whole process that you would go through. You can reply to them. Let's just say they try to fine you. You could reply. You could appeal it, right? You have to do it. It's all in writing. There's a whole process that goes with this. Very little chance that you would have a test question based on what would happen in a hearing or something like that. But there is a whole process about paying civil penalties and, you could appeal a hearing, you can appeal a decision. So again, that's all part of it. And you can get an attorney involved if you'd like to, if you feel, the lines weren't marked correctly and you dug one up versus utility company saying you dug them up but didn't follow our lines. Again, you have every right to fight that if you feel you are in the right. There's remedial orders that would come out. It could be a judge that actually makes this judgment and sends out the orders, or a board or a commissioner. So again, here's the fines one more time. $1,000 for the first offense, not less than $5,000 after that, and more than $10,000 for any subsequent offense. Right? And again, to determine that penalty, they're going to look at the nature, the circumstances, how bad the violation is. Did it blow up a house because the gas line got ruptured? They'll look at all that and make a decision on what the fine would be. So here's some examples of some marking. If you look over here, there's a ton of pre-mark, right? So when someone get out there and they started saying, okay, I want to cut here, I'm going to drill a hole here, and then you can see the utilities are kind of mixed in. Right? So a lot of marking, a lot of stuff going on, and obviously we'd require some serious cutting and digging and being careful of the utilities in that area. In this case, the power company, because it's red, it says no glue, it's no good, don't dig here, too close to end star. So they pre-marked a circle right here. This is where they wanted to dig, but the power company came in, or the utility hired by the power company, which is DigSafe, came in and said, hey, don't dig here. It's way too close. These are our high voltage underground lines. Please stay away. And if you look down here, I really can't see much pre-marking, but again, you could call up and say, can you do lot 34 down the street here? And they would go in, mark the lot out, and would cover everything. So obviously there's a lot going on, right, with this. You have a transformer. This looks like telephone. Looks like you got cable over there, right? There's a yellow line there, which means gas. So and I think there's some green right over here, which would indicate sewer or water. So again, a lot of stuff going on there, but you can see all the pre-markings. And you can see the direction that they go, the directions they travel, right? Gas lines are going this way, but then it tees off and goes into the house. Same thing with the utility lines. All right, lot going on there. And again, you would have to keep those marks maintained. And last but not least is another picture down here where the excavator wants to dig a trench. Obviously in this direction, you can see an arrow there with some lines. I believe I see some other lines on the lawn over here for the pre-mark from the excavator. And they call DigSafe, they come in and say, okay, well, be careful because there's a gas line right over here to the side of your excavation. So again, very much simpler than some of these other ones, but it kind of gets the point across, and this is how it all works. You put your pre-marks in, utility companies go in and do their thing, and then you know where to dig and where not to dig. So failure to pre-mark when practical may jeopardize your DigSafe permit and result in a civil penalty. So, you know, you call DigSafe, but there's no pre-marks there, that can be an issue, right? Excavating outside the pre-marked area requires another permit for DigSafe. So let's just say you want to do 500 feet over here, and then you decide, well, I'm going to keep on going, even though they haven't marked that area, right? You need to call DigSafe again and get that other area approved as well. So again, a permit's good for 500 feet. Gets a little different when you start talking about doing multiple houses in an area. You know, DigSafe would obviously spend more time there for that, but they'd also want to know, okay, where are you going to start and where are you going to end up, and that kind of thing. A couple other things about markings. Again, you can do a full, like let's just say you're going to dig an area, you're going to do an excavation. You can mark the whole thing with a solid line. You could mark the corners out, right? You can do like a dashed line if you want to. You can do dotted lines, right? At least 1 inch diameter lines, right? The radius or arcs is four corners, right? Paint is the typical method used over here. Also, you can get out the flags, right? So in some cases I've seen excavators typically use paint, right, for pre-marking, but I have seen, you know, yellow flags, orange flags, red flags. Sometimes they do both. They'll mark it and throw a few flags up there just to let you know. You can also use painted stakes. Again, you don't want to start painting over historical monuments. You would paint the stake and put that in there. So if you want to put stakes up, you can just take your corners and just mark them out, as you can see over on this side. You can also add a few more just to make sure to give it some depth, if you will. Okay. And then there's marking lateral excavations, some arrows. So you can see, like, if you have this identifier right here, notice how they put arrows on it. It tells you the direction that it's traveling, right? And you can also just do a single stake method. So you could just put one dot in the ground, again, or a stake, with a white painted stake, and they would go out 15 feet in all directions, 50 feet in a radius and check that whole area. So again, another visual on those utilities. Just once again, red is power, yellow is gas, orange is communication, which is phone lines, cable TV, internet. Blue is water, green is sewer. Purple is reclaimed water. And if you see pink on there, that's typically the surveyor comes through there and marks the area. You see pink ribbons, pink stakes, right? That's when they survey the lot, and you'll see those things pop up here and there as well. But again, not necessarily part of DigSafe. That's more of a, where's the lot line? Where's this going to end up, or the corner of the foundation going to be, that sort of thing on a construction site. All right. A couple other things here. So if you see one line, like over here, that means there's one line, one actual power line going in the ground. If you see double lines, that means there's two power lines going on in the ground. If you see something that looks like a diamond or a square, that's usually some kind of a duct structure that has multiple lines inside of it. Right? And in this case, you have, it even says like how many duct structures, that sort of thing. And it has, power being the red, obviously cable is in the, and it says, when it says the number on here, like 2, there's actually one over another one, right? They're stacked on top of each other. Just a couple other things here too. Again, there's a duct structure with some cables inside of it, right? You have, brackets around something. That usually means 18 inches around that area. Stay away from it, right? And you want to be doing some hand digging in that case as well. Just one other thing up top here, there's offset markings. So let's just say you don't want to spray paint in an area because you don't want to damage it. Right up here it says 6 to 8 feet in that direction is SBC. Okay, so you put all these markings 6 to 8 feet away from it, and you say 6 to 8 feet away in that direction. is some type of utility. All right, that's it for DigSafe, folks. Again, this is a free service. You certainly want to call it anytime you're going to dig. They don't even say how deep you have to go. It could be 5 inches in the ground. You're supposed to call DigSafe, because I know this when they put cable in near my house, or I should say fiber, they dug it with a little garden spade about 4 inches down, tucked the wire in. So you never know what you're going to find out there for utilities, but it's always safe to call, prevent a lot of aggravation and maybe injury later. So please use that number, use the call center, and it's part of the Massachusetts general laws that you do that for your hoisting license as well. Thank you.